Barron Trump, a bright and promising child, has always wanted to explore the blinks of his childhood as every other child of his age would. However, an immune disorder he was diagnosed with at birth made him fragile and held him back. Barron Trump was forced to spend most of his early childhood and teenage years behind closed doors, not by choice, but by necessity. Every day was a mystery for young Barron. He prayed and wished he would get over his illness as he watched his peers go to high school most mornings. His parents provided all he ever wanted, but they couldn't provide what he desired the most. Barron had to rely on tutors and an online schooling platform to catch up with his mate. While the other kids experienced the everyday bliss of high school hallways and cafeteria hangouts, Barron was locked in watching documentaries and biographies of his favorite celebrities and mentors. He missed out on sports and the excitement of making friends in locker rooms or during lunch hours. These casual but most vital socialization methods that most high school teenagers have taken for granted. Despite the challenges in Barron's life, he never saw himself as a victim. He understood that life would always come with its hurdles, but how he reacted to these challenges would determine his success. He intentionally began to look for ways he could turn his isolation to his advantage, a testament to his resilience. Barron's condition required constant care and monitoring. He could sometimes become so weak and low on blood that his breath would seize. The doctors have warned his parents to keep him away from large gatherings and stuffy environments, fearing that he may contract mild infections and his body would not be able to fight off the bacteria, which in turn can result in severe immune disorder in the long run. Soon enough, Barron began to see the beauty of homeschooling. While other kids had to work with a scheduled timetable, making them learn under pressure, Barron had the liberty to learn at his own pace, exploring his desired subjects deeply. Above every other high school subject, Barron developed an interest in mathematics. He loved how logical and predictable mathematics problems were presented. The art of deep thinking, involved in solving a mathematical problem, resonated with him, and over the years, it became his stronghold and rising point. Barron could solve any given mathematics problem within seconds, and even his tutors couldn't stand him when it came to that aspect. Barron knew he wanted to explore the depths of mathematics further. He knew there was so much that awaited him, and he wanted to join the force of other young people who could develop reasoning that would lead to the right answer to a problem in mathematics. Despite his intellectual growth in mathematics, Barron still sometimes feels a wave of loneliness hovering over him. The only person who ever came around him was his childhood friend, David Mason. David has been the only constant presence in Barron's life since they were kids, and that has become David's mom. David and Barron's mother are best friends. David, who was born without any complications, is an outgoing and energetic person, always living life with enthusiasm and a carefree nature. He became more like the bridge that held Barron and the world beyond the confines of his room. He brought in trending clothes, shoes, stories, and most importantly, books. David knew how much Barron loved and cherished knowledge of advanced mathematics. They would spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to solve mathematics problems, with Barron beating David at every single solution. David made it his life mission to stop at Barron's house regularly and always be there for him. In order to help him forget his moments of isolation and the limitations of his condition, he engaged in all kind of discussions Barron wanted to have as long as it made him happy. David was the only one aside from Barron's parents who truly understood how his mind worked, and he never treated him like he was fragile. He often challenged and encouraged him to do better, reminding him that the world was waiting for him to finally be ready. Barron's parents tried different hospitals and pharmacists while searching for a medical breakthrough for their son. They consulted different specialists from all over the world and tried experimental treatments, yet nothing improved. They adjusted his diet and sanitized his environment regularly, making sure they heed to the strictest medical recommendations, and nothing truly worked out. It killed them to see Barron suffer so much pain and lose his childhood and teenager years to self-isolation. They wanted him to experience a chance to have a normal life. They believed that somewhere there was someone who could cure their son of his ailment. Just as they predicted, they finally received a referral and met with a renowned pharmacist named Dr. Leonard. He had dedicated his career to manufacturing drugs for illnesses like Barron's. He takes samples and tests drugs to match every patient's DNA, which helps him make a drug suitable to their blood type. That way, the drug works directly with their system, making them respond to treatment naturally. Luckily for Barron's parents, by the time they met with Dr. Leonard, he was working on a specialized immunotherapy drug that was adequately designed to gradually but surely strengthen every immune system that has been affected by genetic conditions. After Barron's case was reviewed, he was confident that his formation had the potential to cure him and make a difference. Barron's parents were skeptical at first, but after much persuasion and assurance, they agreed to proceed and carry on with the treatments. The treatment began in earnest and was stationed to run within a month. They were to carefully monitor and track any side effects from the drug, but most importantly, they were to watch out for improvements. Within the first 2 weeks, there was nothing, or rather, the changes were subtle. Barron still had weakness symptoms and still choked on his breath when he was exposed to harsh weather conditions. But in the third week, Barron began to feel less fatigued, and his recovery fastened. His body began to resist common allergic reactions more than they did before. When the month came to an end, blood tests confirmed what they had all desperately hoped and prayed for. Barron's immune system had grown significantly stronger, and it was re-diagnosed to have become normal. When Barron received the news, his eyes were filled with tears. All these years, he had had to live a separate life because of his illness, and now, finally, just like that, it was gone. He now had the stability he needed to live a normal life alongside his peers. For the first time since he was born, Barron received the validation from doctors to be in public spaces without having an overwhelming concern of breaking down. It meant he could now participate in other rigorous activities like traveling, attending his dream school, and making friends. This was finally the life he had been preparing for all along. When it was finally time for Barron to get ready for college, he was no longer scared of battling failed health issues. He was physically, mentally, and emotionally determined to explore the confines of his college walls. The moment his college acceptance letter came in for his admission, he felt exhilarated, something he hadn't felt in years. His childhood friend and confidant David was the first person he told about it. "I'm finally going to college," Barron said, his voice filled with anticipation, but maintaining a steady pitch. David gave him a friendly pat on his back, grinning hard. "I told you this day would come, and I guess it is now. Don't just forget all about your best friend when you go out there meeting new people," he said jokingly, and they both laughed it off. The first day of college was a whirlwind of new experiences for Barron. He had a long list of the things he wanted to do and experience all through his college years. Walking through the calm environment of his college and watching everyone as they try to settle in and begin the new semester made him feel overwhelmed. So this was finally it, he thought to himself. He made it to a school environment. The first thing Barron knew he needed to do was engage with his peers and build strategic friendships. His classes started off rigorously, but he was determined to thrive under the pressure and workload. This was what he had always wanted, and he wouldn't let anything discourage or bring him down. Barron's ability to quickly grasp complex theories was quickly noticed by his professors and college mates. Everyone loved his intellect and wanted to be friends with him. The girls in his class begged him to offer them after-class lessons in order for them to get a better understanding of the lectures, to which he graciously agreed. All this commotion around Barron drew the attention of the most feared professor to Barron. Professor Allen was Barron's professor in calculus, and as his profession entailed, he was a man with a reputation. He actually spent years making sure he cultivated an image of superior intellect in Barron's college. He couldn't stand to see a mere college student being loved and honored over him. He had set the classroom as his courtroom, where he passed out his judgments to students that tried to defy him at any point. Every student was well informed to know that anyone who does not align with the professor's analogy would quickly be silenced or suffer from academic failure. This was the teaching method Professor Allen has been using over the years. At first, he barely paid any attention to Barron, and you will have to be outstandingly great for the mighty Professor Allen to at least respond to your greetings, not to talk more of noticing you. He doesn't notice or favor anyone. He just goes about his duties, causing pain to every student that would step on his pride. To him, Barron Trump was just another prune he could mess with until he would realize who he truly was. After he took notice of Barron, his hostility towards him began subtly. He started off with throwing at him pointless remarks or just by simply giving him a dismissive glance whenever he asked a question in the class. His debate point was that everyone was saying Barron is intellectually sound despite being homeschooled, but no one is talking about how his intelligence was as a result of the privilege he was born into. He always mentioned this while discussing reasoning and solving mathematical problems. Barron would always catch what he is implying, but would never lose his cool over it. He often wonders what the professor had against him. There was something in the way Prof. Allen spoke to him that unsettled him, but he couldn't rightly place it, since it wasn't a direct aggression, but rather a deliberate movement to get him angry. Since this was within the walls of an academic institution, Barron was ready to lay low and play it cool. He wouldn't want to jeopardize his degree over a man in his 60s giving an attitude, he thought. He decided to stay patient, believing that fairness and merit would reign at the end of the day. Maybe the professor was only having a bad day every day, but who cares, right? Well, wrong. Deep down within him, Barron knew that Prof. Allen was out for something more. But what could it be? He was about to find out. It was another lovely day, and Barron made it in time for class. He sat in the front row and excitedly waited for the day's lessons. Barron had always had the right attitude to learning and gaining new knowledge. To him, learning was not a chore he was stuck with and had to do. It was his hobby, and a way of life. Professor Allen walked slowly into the classroom. He went straight to the board and wrote out a calculus problem. Everyone immediately froze, as they knew it meant that Prof. Allen was about to pass judgment on one unlucky student. Every student in the hall immediately began to pray they would not be called out. As if on cue to ease the already brewing tension in the hearts of the rest of the students, Prof. Allen whispered out Barron's name. The classroom suddenly fell silent from all the shushing sounds. The air around the room was thick with anticipation as everyone turned their heads to look at Barron. Barron didn't fully understand the reason for their reaction. Pushing himself up from his chair, Barron casually stood up and walked to the board, ready to solve the calculus problem, only to meet a shocker. While walking to the board, he could feel his mate's eyes following him, as if waiting for him to flip out. He got to the board and carefully observed the equation. His fingers were twitching, but he tried to keep his mind sharp and active. Barron now fully understood what the professor was trying to do, and he was left with two options. He could either attempt to solve the problem or beat Professor Allen at his own game. He chose the latter. "Sir, I have a complaint. This calculus problem is not in the curriculum," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, and caused an abrupt murmur through the class. "Well, perhaps you aren't as smart as I have judged you to be," Prof. Allen replied, smirking. "Or perhaps you're the one straying away from your syllabus and turning the classroom into a place where you pass out judgments instead of passing out knowledge," Barron said without catching his breath. Professor Allen looked stunned. No one had ever stood up to confront him about his teaching ethics before, and he could feel his blood boiling at that moment. Barron turned to his fellow students and asked, "Has anyone even seen this in our scheme?" Silence followed, with a few shaking their heads to affirm in the negative. "Well, there, you have your answer," Barron said as he dropped the board pen and went back to his seat. A flicker of annoyance waved across Prof. Allen's face. Before he could gather himself and utter another word, Barron turned and said, "This is an advanced problem, an interesting one, but I'd rather not solve it as it is irrelevant to the class." Why would a professor want to test a student with an advanced problem outside of the curriculum? That is the question we should be asking, Barron said. A student at the back took his phone and began recording. Others followed, and soon enough, everyone was recording the ongoing incident. Professor Allen had no more words left to act defensive. He picked up his stuff and left the classroom quietly. Now, everyone thought that was the end of the show Prof. Allen had put up, but that was far from it. The videos taken during the incident were posted on every social media platform, and they were spreading like wildfire. Everyone was talking about how well Barron had handled the situation without escalating it. Within a few hours, the school disciplinary committee summoned Professor Allen to address his attempt at humiliating his student. Everyone supported Barron while no one scrambled to justify Professor Allen's actions. At this time, the campus was in the crossfire, and the school's reputation was being dragged into the mud. Emergency meetings were immediately held, and file statements were drafted. Professor Allen tried all he could to downplay the incident, telling everyone it wasn't a big deal. Yet the pressure mounted, and the issue was beginning to get out of hand. Worst of all, his students began sharing stories of his past behavior. All of his unchecked bias acts were now brought to the limelight. All of these presumptuous acts laid out on Professor Allen left the school with no other choice but to form a complaint against him. While the school was still deliberating on this, the matter had gotten to the Ministry of Education, and Professor Allen was immediately summoned. Now, it had gone beyond just the walls of the university. It was now an official issue involving the ministry. This final confrontation left Professor Allen now fighting for his career. He attempted to fight for his career and defend his actions, but the evidence and witness against him was too strong to be sidelined. Every argument he came up with was dismantled. Everyone watched as his teaching license was seized and disqualified. He was asked to resign and exit the school premises as soon as possible. That was the end of Professor Allen teaching credibility. Meanwhile, Barron had become the center of attention everywhere in his school. Everyone saw him as the student who stood up to Professor Allen and escaped his humiliation. Media forums invited him to speak about the biased treatment of professors in the schooling system. He prepared adequately, ensuring his message was clear, citing the need for academic institutions to foster critical thinking in administering lectures rather than using ideological debates. Well, you would think that was a brilliant thing for Barron to suggest, and everyone would duly embrace it. But opposition arose. Other professors, journalists, and activists called him out as a privileged opportunist playing the victim. This called for a panel-arranged debate, and Barron, who was visibly unbothered by their statements, embraced them all. "He is not a hero with a cape trying to stop academic bias," one professor sneered on the news panel. "He's only the son of a wealthy billionaire, exposing the advantages of growing up in luxury, enjoying the privilege of private tutors, and living a self-isolated life." These attacks did nothing to faze Barron. He obliged to all their accusations, knowing fully well that it would eventually backfire on them. Barron knew that Professor Allen's allies would come for him, now that the humiliation tactics had failed and had become a national concern. He wasn't surprised when they tried to make it his fault too. because fame comes with a price. He wasn't going to give them a debate. He wanted to do something smarter. He was going to offer them proof. They had mentioned that he had the privilege of private tutors while self-isolating because he had wealthy parents. No one really knew about his illness because it was a confidential case. Barron decided to expose this to the whole nation in order to defend himself. He was not just a student anymore. He was a living symbol, and symbols would have to stand for something. He had to come clean and save his integrity. Different colleges tried to schedule interviews with him. Some were genuine invitations, and others were traps set by theater faculties eager to discredit him and use it as content for their live audience. Barron made sure to study each offer carefully in order to choose one where he would have the opportunity to state his defense and clear his name. He finally made his pick and accepted to honor his invite to College of Columbia. His host was Dr. Phillip, a well-respected professor with years of experience and a deep hatred for the biased teaching system. The school auditorium was packed with students from different colleges, and the interview was aired on live television. Dr. Phillip wasted no time as he began by saying, "We have heard that you're not the victim, and you were never in danger of failing the class because you could actually solve the calculus problem given to you by Professor Allen. A source has it that your parents' influence made it possible for you to have the best private tutors while growing up, that you decided to defy high school. How true are these allegations laid out against you, Mr. Barron?" Barron shrugged and replied, "Even though that wasn't the case, privilege does not erase injustice. My professor had abused his power against me without fully knowing my story." Barron then went ahead to tell the story of his ailment and his journey to recovery all these years, while also presenting his medical reports. Everyone was left in shock and amazed at how much strength Barron had to put in to even make it to college. By the end of the interview, everyone couldn't help but admire Barron's resilience, and they told him how proud they were of him. When Barron returned to his school, a congratulatory party was held in honor of him, and he was awarded Student of the Year. What do you think about the way Barron handled the turnout of the debates against him? What would you have done if you were Barron? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Before you go, click the links on your screen for more insightful videos. You can also tap on the bell icon to get a notification when we post a new one. See you next time.